Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How y'all doing today? Welcome back to Morals Math Corner. Today we're going to learn how to factor trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. When we're factoring trinomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where b is greater than 0 and c is greater than 0, please note that the a, the leading coefficient, is going to be something other than 1. There are two methods that I'm going to teach today, and the first one is called the product sum, or I like to call it the Cuban method. First off, setup. The setup, as you can see here, is going to be simply an AX and an AX. Okay, very similar to our other setup when X is 1, but we're going to repeat the A. All right, step 2. We're going to go ahead and multiply the A times the C to find what I like to call a new C. So if we go ahead and take that A, which is 5, times the current C, which is 10, my new C will be 10. Okay? So now that we have the new C, now we're going to ask the most important question. What number times what other number equals the new C, but when added together equals B? So in this particular case, we're asking what times what is our new C of 10, but when added together is 11. And you got it, we've got positive 10 and positive 1. 10 times 1 is 10, 10 plus 1 is 11. And now we've plugged in our answers. That would be step 4. And the last and most important step is called imaginary factoring. I call it imaginary because we're going to factor out any and all GCFs from either or both of the binomials that we've created, and we're not going to keep them. So therefore, it's an imaginary factor. That's the trick part here. So in this first binomial, I can take out a 5. So I am not keeping the 5. That is the imaginary factoring, and I am done. Now, a lot of times, I'm not going to lie to you, this imaginary factoring part really confuses people. They forget it. So if you don't like that, or you think you're susceptible to perhaps forgetting the imaginary factor at the end, let's go ahead and show you the next method. Method 2 is called the grouping method, okay? This is just as good, just a little bit different. So, first things first, we're going to set this up as 3x squared and the minus 8, and we're going to leave the middle part blank for a second. Okay, after we do that, we are going to go ahead and multiply A times C, and once again find a new C. So my A in this case is 3 times my C is negative 8. So this time my new C will equal a negative 24. Okay, now step 2. What number times what other number equals the new C, but when added together equals B? Same exact question. What times what equals negative 8? But when added together, what times what equals negative 24, apologize, but when added together equals negative 12. Well, in that case, we're going to go ahead and write down the answer to that in this middle blank space that we have. So what times what is negative 12, but when added together is negative 10? We've got a negative 12x plus a positive 2x. Negative 12 times 2 is negative 24. Negative 12 plus 2 is negative 10. Now we're going to go ahead and group it. We know how to group. Factor out my 3x, leftover of x minus 4. When I factor out a 2 here, I create my identical binomial of, x minus 4. And now I can group these by factoring out the common factor of x minus 4. And I'm left with a 3x plus 2. And that's a surefire way. You never have to worry about the imaginary factor in this particular case, and you're done. So it's really dealer's choice. It's up to you. So I suggest learn both and then master the one that you really love. All right, let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and factor all four of these both methods, so that way you can really digest both of these methods and decide for yourself which one you like best. Okay, method one, the Cuban method. I'm going to go ahead and put my 3x, multiply a times c to give me a new c of 6. What times what is 6, but when added together is 5. Got a positive 3 and positive 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5. Imaginary factor of a 3. X plus 1 times 3x plus 2. I am done. It's that simple. All right, what if you don't like that method? You want to go grouping. Let's do it. Okay, for grouping, I'm going to go ahead and separate my first and my last terms, leaving me some blank middle space. I'm going to still multiply my a times my c to give me a new c of 6. I'm still going to ask what times what is 6, but when added together is 5. That's going to be a 3x and a 2x. Then I'm going to go ahead and group. So I can factor out of here a 3x, leaving me with x plus 1. And from here I can factor out a 2, leaving me with an x plus 1. So I can factor out the x plus 1, and I'm left with 3x plus 2. Either way you want to do it is up to you. Decide which one you really love and master it. Okay. Number 2, I'm going to go Cuban method first. I'm going to go ahead and write my 4x and my 4x. A times c, my new c is now negative 12. What times what is negative 12, but when added together is positive 4. We've got positive 6 and negative 2. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12, check. 6 minus 2 is 4, check. In this case, I can imaginary factor a 2 from the first term, giving me 2x plus 3, and also a 2 from the second term, giving me a 2x minus 1. And you are done. All right, let's go. Okay, let's do it grouping. For grouping, I'm going to go ahead and once again separate my first and last terms. Going to multiply a times c to get me a new c of negative 6 once again. What times what is negative 6, but when added together is positive 4. I'm sorry, that is wrong. My new c is not 6. Apologize, we all make mistakes. My new c is negative 12. Sorry about that. Sorry for the confusion. So what times what is negative 12, but when added together is positive 4. And we've got a positive 6x and a negative 2x there. We're going to go ahead and group it. So for my first binomial, I can take out a 2x, leaving me with the leftover of 2x plus 3. And from this second binomial, I can take out or factor out a negative 1, giving me a leftover binomial of the identical 2x plus 3. So now I can factor out my 2x plus 3 and my leftover 2x minus 1 is my factored form. All right, let's go. Number 3, Cuban method. I'm going to go ahead and go 6x. 6 times 5, my new c is 30. What times what is 30, but when added together is 13. I've got positive 10 and positive 3. I can imaginary factor a 2 from this first binomial. And I can factor out a 3 from the second binomial, leaving me with 2x plus 1. And there you have it. You don't like the cubic method, you want to go grouping, no worries. Go ahead and separate your first and last term. Then once again, multiply a times c to find a new c of 30. Then ask your question, what times what is 30, but when added together is 13x. We've got a positive 10x plus 3x. Then we're going to go ahead and group. So I can factor out from this first binomial a 2x, leaving me with a 3x plus 5. And from this second polynomial, we already have a 3x plus 5. So when that occurs, we can just factor out a plain old 1. And we're left with 3x plus 5 once again. And now I can go ahead and group them together, factoring out my 3x plus 5 times my leftover binomial of 2x plus 1. And last but not least, at this point, you should be able to decide which way you like better, cubic method or grouping. Cubic method, I got 2x and 2x, multiply my a times my c to get me a new c of negative 14. What times what is negative 14, but when added together is negative 13. Got a negative 14 and a positive 1 for that answer. I can factor out an imaginary factor of 2 here, giving me x minus 7 times 2x plus 1, and you're done. You don't like the cubic method, you like grouping? No worries. Let's go ahead and factor this by grouping. Go ahead and separate your first and your last term, leaving yourself some space in the middle. Go ahead and multiply your a times your c to find the new c once again of negative 14. Ask your question, what times what is negative 14, but when added together is negative 13x. You've got a negative 14x and a positive 1x. So we're going to go ahead and group because we just created a 4-term polynomial. I'm going to factor out my GCF of 2x here, leaving me with a leftover of x minus 7. And I've already got an x minus 7 binomial here. They're identical. When they're already identical, you can always factor out a 1. So I factor out a 1 from here, leaving me with x minus 7. And now I can factor by grouping. I factor out my x minus 7, and I am left with my binomial of 2x plus 1. And there you have it. Now you know how to factor trinomials using either or the product sum cubic method or the grouping method. Hope you learned a lot. Come back anytime. Thank you for watching. Take care now. Bye-bye.